Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to the Championship podcast here on EFL Debate. And by the way, if you like what we do here, you can do us a massive favour and get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. Delighted to be joined, as always, by my co-host, Ollie Mann from Sheffield United Way. And we're joined by friend of the show, Johnny Bullock from the Borough Breakdown. Johnny, always a pleasure to see you, mate. Thanks so much for joining us. Bit of a betrayal, I suppose, on Teesside.
I don't think anything's happened, does it? Yeah, it's a bit of a betrayal. Rob Edwards going to Wolves. I'll be honest, have I financially gained from it? We've seen the news from David Ornstein. Yes. I think as soon as I seen the note of Edwards potentially going, I was like, yeah, I'm putting 20 quid on that because that's definitely going to happen. And it did, and it is. So I'm £100 richer, which is a lot. Good for my own pocket. Probably, and I think Rob Edwards is probably doing a lot more than what he's getting at Middlesbrough as well. But yeah, it's disappointing, I would say, for a lot of Borough fans. Disappointed because of it was being a good start. All of the PR around him coming in terms of family, togetherness, the spiel of PR really that, Rob Edwards really threw on Borough fans. And a lot of people took it. And then you've got people like myself who were kind of like, not drinking any Kool-Aid with you yet. I want to kind of see how this plays out for a little bit. And yeah, probably haven't had the chance to really see it play out because he's leaving us now after a few months. So, if you're at the game on Saturday, I think that you'll get a good understanding of how Borough fans felt about Rob Edwards at the end of it. And, we've still managed to keep Eddie Vivesh with us. And I think that for me is the big plus out of everything because we probably kept the best coach out of the lot with us. And they're going to stay around until, he's going to stay even when we appoint someone new as well. So that's even better.
One of the best right-hand men in the Championship, Eddie Vivesh, I think. I suppose I wanted to, I don't necessarily think this, but I do want to kind of make sure that you present the other side of the argument when it comes to managers' moves and the ethical side of it. So I'll come to you on this, Ollie. I suppose if you were to make a case for Rob Edwards and his actions, you would probably say that firstly, there's very little loyalty towards managers in football typically. And that sometimes you do have to swing when your stock is high. And I can see the validity of that way of doing business because that's how you maximize when your stock is high, because when your stock is low, there's fewer offers. Secondly, I can kind of understand the family aspect, which is, that his family around the West Midlands area, and obviously he's going to make a few quid, as Johnny mentioned. Having said that, it really hurts to sort of show faith in somebody and give them a 3-year contract and then for them to then speak to another club behind their back. So logically, I'm like, I can kind of get it, but emotionally, I'm like, you've screwed over the people who showed faith in you.
Absolutely that, because I think it's a really interesting debate, this one, and it comes up semi-regularly, and I think my team, we are probably quite a good example of the opposite side of this. For example, we gave Ruben Sellers a long contract. He got 5 games and nobody was screaming about that loyalty and how much he deserved more. And I think, when you're a football manager and you're working this through, you have to think about those changes. And I wonder if you look at Rob Edwards' career and you go back to that time at Luton and they flew. And there was probably a moment in the Premier League where his stock was the highest it was potentially ever going to be. And I'm sure there were opportunities there where he could have jumped. There might have been noises. There might have been moments. And maybe he recommitted to Luton and then it all went wrong last season. And suddenly his stock wasn't as high. We weren't certain about who he was as a manager, what he was going to be able to deliver. And maybe he's trying to learn from that. Maybe he's thinking, you know what, my stock's high again. Let's jump while we get the opportunity. But for me, there's 2 bigger fundamentals to this one. The first one is, it's been 14 games at the time that this obviously all started to kick off. And you're towards the top of the Championship. Wolves, to me, look relegated. I know we're not a Premier League podcast, but they look like a team who have no way out of the mess that they're currently sat in. They've not won any games. They've not got any points. They're sat rock bottom of the Premier League with no obvious candidates that they're going to overtake. And so I struggle a little bit with the fundamentals of, well, why not stick this out and see if you can get promoted rather than go to a team who are going to get relegated? I'm sure there's a lot of financial remuneration. Maybe he thinks there is the opportunity to turn it around, but that's a big question mark for me, because I think all of those points you raised there, Gab, are valid. And I think, it is fair for us to give both sides of that argument as people who aren't Middlesbrough fans and therefore feel as though we should be reasonable, even though we probably shouldn't. But I think there's bigger questions for me here that is about the decision making that he's made, because this to me just feels like Wolves are a team that are in a bit of a crisis. I would not be shocked if we're talking about them next season, Gab, and we're talking about them as a potential basket case, because we've got ownership who aren't sort of committed to funding, who aren't committed to pushing this project forward. They seem to have almost shot their load a couple of seasons ago and now don't know quite how to continue the club going forward, don't know how to sort of maintain their levels of funding, of support, of drive. It feels to me that he's joined. If you were going to make this jump, there has to be better options. We know about the model at Middlesbrough and what obviously Gibson has brought to the club long term. And we know that there is a stability, there is a room for development, a room for growth. If they're at the top end of the Championship, they will try their best to be competitive in that market to push themselves forward. And I think there's lots of things wrong with this, going from loyalty, going from just, it's 14 games. How can you not commit yourself for more than that? But B, just on a general decision making, why would you make that jump? Why Wolves? Why now? There's a lot of things there that just don't quite ring to me. And I think, I think we'll be sat here talking about this as a very bad decision in 9 months' time.
Yeah, it feels like it's very emotional as well, doesn't it, Ollie? Like it doesn't. It's one of those things where you've just went, okay, you are going to massively benefit, probably quadrupling your wage to go somewhere which is close, near your family, which he does speak about quite a lot in that High Performance podcast with Jay Coventry as well. That he speaks a lot about wanting to be with his family. So I think that you go, okay, well, I can understand it, but you did sign the contract 4 months ago to come over here.
Middlesbrough hasn't moved from the Midlands to the northeast.
So you commit to that commute and you commit to a team and you commit to a club. And I think we've also done a lot with him as well. Like we committed him in the transfer window. We brought in players to help adapt to his style. He got a very close relationship with Kieran Scott and Chris Jones, who's our head of recruitment. So there's a lot of people he's probably upset here by making this move, and it's so short-termism, I think, because even if the Wolves aren't moving from 20th, I think, let's be brutal honest, I don't think they're going to move. Borough could, they could maybe 4th, 6th, and then, Wolves might have got someone in for 6 months, failed, and then he could have took the job probably in the May, June of next year. Borough might be up or they might be down. It doesn't really matter, does it? It feels I think it's just the short termness of the decision, but also the short termism of like him leaving Borough after so few games. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's the frustration that, there was so much opportunity there and there was something really nice being built in terms of what that could potentially look like, the backing, the support that he's had. It would be nice to see him repay that in terms of driving it forward, continuing this sort of great season that you were having to this point. However, the other side to this is, and I wonder if, you might reflect on this, Johnny, differently to me, but I feel as like there's been learning from Borough on this. Because I remember a few years ago, you had Chris Wilder as manager and Burnley were talking. They wanted to come and get your manager when you were flying and you said no, it didn't go anywhere. And that then soured almost a full season in terms of, the hangover of Wilder never really getting it going again at Borough. You're not being able to drive that forward. The one saving grace in this is how quickly it has been resolved. I agree. Rumours come out middle of last week. He goes before the weekend so that you can get, some good feeling and that kind of backs against the wall in at the Riverside. And then next, you've got 2 weeks now to find a new manager for Vivesh to be working with them on the training ground. It's happened fast to stop it hanging over the entire season. And I do think there's a positive to come out of that side of it, even if overall it does feel like a pretty negative situation at the minute.
The last thing you'd want is for there to be enough reports that everyone knows that he'd spoken to Wolves, but then the club to sort of almost cut off the nose to spite the face and say no. And then that would actually ruin a season because there would be a real disconnect between the fans and Rob Edwards, and you don't want that. So it's like on some level it might almost be appealing to sort of make him suffer and make him try and backpedal, but really it's not actually helping the fundamental cause.
Yeah, we made a really good. Made some really good decisions in this week. By publicly saying we've rejected it, publicly saying that he's willing to speak, and what we did really well there from a positioning standpoint is just to say we've put it on Edwards to say if you want the move, that's on you. It's a you move versus the club, and I think that is definitely baked into a lot of the snake allegations, all of these bits and pieces. But Borough have done well there in that position. But yeah, it's I agree with both of you. I don't think it's I don't even think it's a bad decision that Borough have lost him, to be honest, either. Like, he didn't probably want to be here fully. He was living in a hotel, which is fine. You are going to do that, which is okay, not to fully commit short-termism of football, but ultimately he's probably leaving Middlesbrough at a point where the stock was starting to going down. We weren't creating chances. We haven't been great the last few weeks. And there's always that concern in the back of your mind. And he's going to leave Borough now as I've got them into the top two. But realistically, if you look at the underlying numbers, we probably are like that 8th to 10th team at the moment where we're not the best, really. And it's given us a good opportunity to probably get someone else in now and hopefully take us even higher in the table.
I agree. I want to come on to that conversation as to who next, because I'm sure we've all got some interesting ideas on that. But one thing I did want to say is Unique Sports Media, who are Rob Edwards' representatives, I do have some ethical question marks about them, because they were representatives for Johnny Rowe when he refused to play for Norwich City to force through a move to Marseille. So firstly, they do seem to be involved when it comes to people making ethically questionable moves. And also, secondly, a little bit disappointed in mainstream media journalists and outlets that have reported that Rob Edwards would have been willing to take training and do media and take the game on Saturday against Birmingham, and that it was the club denying him. Because firstly, I don't know if that's true from what I've gathered. And secondly, I think it's sort of irrelevant, because it almost suggests that was the main grievance. It's almost like slightly misdirecting people. And it suggests that it takes away from the fact that the main grievance Middlesbrough fans have with Rob Edwards is that he was negotiating with another club behind their back, not his availability for this week's preparation and match day. So I think there's question marks of Unique Sports Media, and I think there's question marks about their relationship with certain people and outlets in mainstream media.
I agree, Gab. And look, there was absolutely no chance that Rob Edwards was managing that game on Saturday. As soon about Thursday, when Borough, as soon as Middlesbrough reject that initial approach, there was absolutely no chance. You could tell that Middlesbrough, if he came out on Saturday after the whole allegation of us rejecting everything, he would have got booed out of the stadium. And I think Borough fans are very loyal until you cross us, and then once you've crossed us, there's probably no going back. It's very rare that someone gets a second chance on Teesside, and there's only probably one or two people in Middlesbrough's history that probably would have done it in very recent history. But no, Edwards, as soon as that was done on the Thursday, he's gone. But it could have been him. It could have been like his group and his PR team trying to spin a bit of a narrative to say, "Hey, I'm professional to the end. Always going to do everything I can when I'm in a role," which is just nonsense, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I would ask some big questions of Unique Sports Group on those grounds. But moving on to the next manager for Middlesbrough, Johnny, what kind of profile do you think the club should be looking at when it comes to replacing Rob Edwards?
I think that's a great question. Much better than who do you want and why do you want him? I think which I know it's coming up, isn't it? But I think for Middlesbrough right now and who they want, and if you look at Middlesbrough's profile of managers who we've appointed over the last few years, it tends to be British manager, out of work. We don't like to poach different managers out of different clubs. And we go from there. It's only really been Aitor Karanka who's been the foreign coach. Now, could we make it a second one with Carlos Corberán? Who knows? Or someone else in that mix, because we did interview quite a few foreign managers this summer. So I'm very intrigued to see who we would bring in. I think if we're keeping Adi Vivesh at the club, which Middlesbrough have openly said that they'll want to keep him in, which I think is the right decision. Yeah. You are looking at more of a counter-attacking, pragmatic team versus a side or a coach who's got a real identity of playing heavy possession-based football, which would rule out a Russell Martin. So, yeah, I think a coach who's most likely British, out of a job, likes to play a pragmatic style, there's probably, you have quite a few in terms of a selection.
Steve
However,
Cooper.
he's away now, isn't he? Isn't he abroad now? Isn't he abroad?
Has he taken a job abroad, right?
Yeah. But I would actually say I do think there is a chance that we might try and test a couple of people in the Championship, and I wouldn't be shocked again if we interview quite a few foreign managers as well.
It feels like a really open. Obviously, it's because it's so early and the rumours haven't come out. You have no idea where it's going. But I was thinking about that sort of profile of manager that you seem to have been looking at in recent times. You know, Michael Carrick, for example. You've gone for some of the younger generation of coaches looking to try and come through, looking to try and learn. I did note on the betting odds at the moment that Gary O'Neill seems pretty high. You know, as you were describing there, in terms of, you know, somebody who comes through. He was the kind of name that I wondered if would start to be, you know, rumoured to be coming for this. I think he was on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago, which means he's definitely back in the market and trying to get himself out there. Is it that kind of coach who you think would be one who comes in with that kind of profile of a former professional player, played at a high level, you know, he's coming in still early in his career? Or do you think you might look more tried and tested in the route of, say, like Corberan or somebody like that who's got a little bit more experience behind him?
I think we'll go more tried and tested, to be honest. I think if Gary Neal got the job, I feel like you get tomatoes on the touchline straight away. From 2008, was it 2008? Yeah, 2008, where he got the yellow card on purpose. So I don't know if you heard that story, but got a yellow card on purpose at Bolton. So you go and watch the Masters. And then, you know, we got relegated, and, you know, hence why when his name's been mentioned, a lot of Borough fans are very, like, again, coming back to that loyalty piece. Once you've crossed us, we don't want you back. He did say that, great club, top fans on Monday Night Football this week. I was like, definitely trying to peddle, you know, the narrative there, but I don't think Borough fans would forgive him. But yeah, tried and tested. But to be honest, if you look at profiles of what we've done in the past, you would just go, oh, well, Steven Gerrard's available. That would make logical Middlesbrough sense to do something like that. Do I want Steven Gerrard? Probably not. But the script writes itself, doesn't it? Gerrard, Lampard, the fight for promotion, but we just won't be in the fight for it, to be honest. I can't see us being in the automatic, but that's what the narrative will be if we got something like that. But I was at a venue. I was at a talk on Monday of last week with Gareth Southgate. Now it was like more of a leadership like conversation. He explained like we got the board job at first, and he was saying like, oh well, Gibson rang me and I was in Florida and I have no experience. And he did say never. However, he doesn't want to do any coaching anytime soon. So it could have been a nice one, you know, to welcome him back. But
do you know what though, Johnny? Just on that, I think Gareth Southgate would be quite a good fit because you've got a Viviash in place to do a lot of the coaching on the grass. So actually, what it really needs the Middlesbrough manager job is someone who's very good at people management, and I think Gareth Southgate is world class at that. But I think, and he wouldn't actually have to do a lot of coaching; it would just be more the managing side, which he could do with his eyes closed. So
I wouldn't turn it down.
Yeah,
I won't turn it down.
I
think it'd be
yeah,
if you wanted it, Gab, 100%. Like I wouldn't turn it down, but it's I think it's just so unlikely. I think what a turn for the Bucks that would be, if Southgate was to come back, to be honest. But Gab, you're the oracle of EFL. Is there anyone that you would like to see as Borough boss?
I would go all out for Carlos Corberan because I think Valencia aren't in great form at the moment, which does mean that there's a high chance that he could be available either by approaching him after he gets sacked, or maybe there's the possibility that you might be able to give them a nominal fee and it would kind of work for all parties because you get the manager they want and they wouldn't have to pay to part company. So I suppose I could see something like that. I'm a huge fan of Corberan. I think he builds really balanced teams. I think they're always very fit. They always have that nice balance between being really well organised and being able to ride out spells of pressure at times, but also being able to create a reasonably steady flow of chances. And I think he's a very detail-driven coach. So Carlos Corberan would be my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would not turn that down either, to be honest. I think the only concern that we have with Corberan right now is that Daniel Farke is looking to be sacked, isn't he, at Leeds? So would Corberan want to go back to a Leeds and be the head coach there? So that's always an interesting one. I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on if Borough were to probe out Nathan Jones maybe as well at Charlton. He's a manager who,
has jumped before Nathan Jones, hasn't he?
He's jumped before. Look, I know he failed at Stoke, but Stoke's was a bit of a basket case at that point. Southampton, no bottom of the Championship, but everywhere else with a good platform, he seemed to do really well at bringing togetherness and that us versus them mentality. And I think that's what Borough could really be galvanised by now. And hey, someone left us. Would that type of manager? I know he would jump ship from Charlton, but that us versus them mentality would be quite a nice, fiery fit. And what a story to tell as well, where, Nathan Jones left, Rob Edwards took his side up, Rob Edwards left and Nathan Jones took a team up. I think it'd be quite a nice narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be. But I think, if I was to pick someone in the Championship, I'd be looking at maybe him as a view to probably potentially bring in.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll bring in now Simon Lillebury, who's host of the Championship podcast on The Sportsman. Simon, great to have you on. We will get into the Coventry chat in a moment, but if you don't mind me throwing you into the deep end straight away, do you have a take on, I suppose, the events at Middlesbrough with Rob Edwards leaving, but also suggestions on who next for the Borough?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a link that is, Gab, because I'm up on YouTube now, up and running. I've just done a video shared by Johnny with Callum Fowler on the next Middlesbrough managers up now. And I don't think it's bad that Rob Edwards has left necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily that bad that he's decided to move to Wolves, because I've missed the last bit of conversation you've had, but I think Borough had dropped off slightly in the last 2 or 3 games before he left. Adi Vivash is the main man. He is so good. Look what he did this weekend with Borough. The fact that he's staying and he's not going with Rob Edwards, it seems, is absolutely massive. If he can stay as the assistant manager and you're looking at someone like Carlos Corberan, if you can tempt him to come over from Valencia, I think it's an upgrade on Rob Edwards. If you can get Corberan in, it's an upgrade on Rob Edwards. There's a few other names in the frame, obviously, that are quite interesting. Steven Gerrard and things like that I would potentially stay away from. But we really don't know what's going to happen at this moment in time. I think you look at a name like Corberan and you just think, wow, I think Adi Vivash has done enough in the game now to deserve a few games in charge of a Championship team. I think he'd be a really good first team manager for Middlesbrough. I don't know how likely that is, that they would just let him step up and do that. But given what we saw against Birmingham, it wouldn't be a bad shout.
Would he fancy being the face of the club, though? Because it's not just about how good a coach you are as a number one. It's about people management. It's about relationships. It's about managing the club to a certain extent, as well as coaching a team. Do you reckon he can do all that side of things that maybe Mark Robbins did when Vivash was at Coventry?
Yeah, interesting one. I think it would be diminishing his abilities and his media-facing role to suggest that he wouldn't be able to do it, given he did it this weekend and looked absolutely fine. I think he's experienced enough and he's been around the game long enough. I don't think that would particularly be a big challenge for him, but it's whether he wants to be the main man and whether he wants to maybe take away from the coaching work that he loves so much. He loves to be on the pitch. He loves to improve players. He loves to work on a tactical shape. Can he then translate that into being a first team manager and dealing, as you say, Gab, with potentially a few of the other issues that come with actually being the face of the club? I think Borough are in a really good position where it might sound a bit weird to say, but they might have kept hold of the most important man at the club in terms of that staff. You've lost Edwards, and there's a guy going with him, Johnny, you'll know his name, that I've forgotten.
Harry Watlin.
But I think Eddie's the key. He really is the key. And I don't think Borough will give him the first team job. I think they might leave him in charge. The international break probably comes at a good time for them to get a new manager in. We saw that with Frank Lampard at Cov last season, obviously. But I think having him and that continuity at the club, if you can get another decent manager in, and what a job Middlesbrough is at this point in time, by the way, second in the Championship, a real good chance of a top 6 finish, a good chance of promotion this season, is such a kind of great job, like a golden ticket almost, isn't it? To be able to walk into that club, really good squad, good fan base, all on board, wanting to prove something. Al Edwards has left. I think it's such a good club to go into right now. I also had an outside shout for someone like, and I don't think they would do it, but I think he deserves a championship job, and that's Dave Challoner at Stockport, top of the League One at the moment. Promotions on his CV. And obviously they're well backed, Stockport, and they've got a bit of money. But I don't think you could turn down, if you're Dave Challoner, the Middlesbrough job, given they're second in the Championship. I would love to see him in the Championship. I don't know whether we'll have to wait till next year in Stockport. I'm 90% sure they're going to go up from League One this season. He's doing a brilliant job. But I don't think he could turn that down. And I think it'd be really interesting to see if a manager like him went in at Borough for an outside shout.
Interesting. So, Johnny, are you optimistic for the rest of the season? As long as Vivash stays in some capacity, do you feel like you're going to get top 6?
I do, yeah. I think I'm kind of the same as Simon, to be fair. And I know I've spoke about it previously about not being much on the Kool-Aid of Edwards, but I think it definitely depends on who comes in now. And if you do get a call and you're thinking, yeah, it's nailed. But if you bring in like a development coach, then you're going to say, well, actually, maybe be a little bit reserved of where Borough land, but they've got a good enough team there. They can strengthen in January even further. So you would probably lean towards more optimism than not hopefully being a top 6 side. They've shown that they can beat teams in and around them. So yeah, why not? Why not? They could maybe get in that top 6.
To jump in, Johnny, sorry if this has already been spoken about, but Gareth Southgate, is that a possibility?
I don't think of it.
Yeah.
You don't think so? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But no, I don't think Gareth will come back, to be honest. I think he's very happy with what he's doing at the moment. But it'd be nice to maybe have that part 2 where he does get Borough back up to the big time. Again, a closing chapter and a really good story. So being big about this stuff, I think this next appointment's all about the story. It's all about who will come in and galvanise Middlesbrough, and who will Middlesbrough fans be really proud of having as the manager as well. Because even though Edward said all the right things, I still think a lot of fans were in the back of their minds thinking, you're just PRing me here. And he's going to probably do that at Wolves now. And I wouldn't be shocked if he said exactly the same thing in his press conference probably tomorrow with Wolves than he did when he was at Middlesbrough, saying it was a dream. And there was some lovely quotes as well, like which Red Faction, one of our fan groups, put out in the South Stand, where it was just a quote of what Rob Edwards said around like being like a family and stuff. And it was like, it's quite ironic that he said all these things and bailed, but yeah, probably
we've got to stick together.
Yeah, we'll see next year.
Just to round off on Southgate idea, he does live in Harrogate, I believe. So could be reasonably local. So we shall see. All right, Johnny. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Keep up the great work on the Borough Breakdown, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, cheers, guys. And what a dream team this is, by the way. I was like loving this. This needs to be a thing. Have a great pod, guys. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers,
Cheers, mate. So, Simon, I wanted to pick your brains on Coventry City after a 1-0 win at Stoke that's put you 7 points clear. I think it's 5 points clear at the top of the league and 7 points clear of third. I mean, that's long way to go, 2/3 of a season, of course, but that's a really nice position to be in at this stage.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely mad. I don't know, not used to feeling like this. We just look like a really, really good football team right now. We've got a lot of ways of winning games of football. We've shown how many goals we can score in the attacking threat, which has been spoken about widely, but caught my eye that we've now kept the most clean sheets in the Championship as well, which has potentially not been talked about enough. Kitchen and Thomas have been immense. Van Avaak at right back, one of his best performances on Saturday. And Jay Da Silva, the progress he's made at left back, we're so settled at the back now. We've just got a lot of ways of winning a game of football. And it's really nice to see us like battle with Stoke, and it was a horrible game of football for 80 minutes. It looks like both teams were happy to take a 0-0, which they probably would have been happy with that. But to then win it, going into an international break, it's in the way we did with that goal as well. It's such a bonus. Yeah, the feeling is unbelievable right now, and it's going really, really well. I think I saw a stat that Coventry's worst 31 game period since we returned to the Championship, I think if we repeated that, which was the last 31 games of our first season back up, I think if we repeated the amount of points we got in that segment, we would end the season on 70 points, which shows the start we've had is immense. I think Burnley and Leeds were on 29 and 27 points after 15 games last season. Obviously, they both finished on 100 and went on amazing second half of the season runs. But we're at the stage now where, crazy to say, we don't actually need to be amazing or as good as we have been to finish definitely in the top 6. I mean, it would be a disaster for if we don't finish in the top 6.
Sure.
But for the top 2, I think to get 90 points now is a really realistic aim.
I don't know if you need 90 points for the top 2, so...
Yeah, we only need 56 more points now, I think it is, if my maths is correct, from 31 games. That's not too out of reach to then have a season where you finish with 56 points. So the start we've had is amazing. We've talked about squad depth and potential issues there, but we're coping with that sort of thing well. Jack Rodoni's hopefully going to be back. He was back in training ahead of the Stoke game, so he should be back. And he's our best player after the international break. So it's really, really exciting stuff. And yeah, I can't believe it. Massive credit to Frank Lampard and everything that's going on with the football club right now.
Certainly.
I've silenced you. It's too good.
Yeah,
It's too good. What do you say?
Absolutely.
I am a bit worried, Ollie, though. You know, you got a lot of points last season. Sheffield United didn't quite get promoted, and now
I think the bar's lower this year.
Yeah, we did get a few, didn't we? Yeah. If they only did let us split them, and we could have some of them this season, that'd be great.
No, I think the bar is a bit lower this season, though, Ollie, because I don't think the standard required for automatic promotion is going to be as high. I mean, last season, you had 2 teams getting to 100 points. I don't think we'll have anything near that this year.
No, not at all. And I think that's the big thing for me when we talk about Coventry. I think we did this show a couple of weeks ago, and I was very bullish on where Coventry are going to finish this season, because for me, I look around and it's not even so much, you talked there about, say, average from now to the end of the season gets you pretty close to the line that we're going to draw around what automatic promotion looks like. But even sort of when you think about the title or other things that can come with that, the big contenders feel so far back at the moment. Me and Gab have talked about this separately off air, and it does feel a little bit disrespectful to about 6 teams. But, you talk about Ipswich as being probably still the most likely team who we see coming and taking that away from you. That's an 11-point cushion, albeit, yes, they've got a game in hand, but an 8-point cushion is the minimum that's going to be. And that's a huge position to be in terms of just needing that run to the end of the season now. It does feel as though we've not just seen an evolution of Coventry, because obviously for a number of seasons now, you've been in that top 6 conversation. People have said, Coventry feel like a team that are ready to just kick. This season, everything has gone right. And it's not just that you've kicked on. You do feel as though a team that I don't see a regression to average. I don't know where that happens, because so far it's not just one area of the team that's running hot. Everything seems to be working. It seems to work as a perfect unit. I saw it in the flesh. I came over obviously midweek last week. And even when you had what I would suggest was probably a slightly below par performance in terms of where you were going, that constant attacking threat, not giving up any chances, even in games where it doesn't work, I don't see... You've still got so much in terms of attacking threat and defensive stability that it's hard to see a bad run coming. Now, obviously, it always feels like that. But yeah, this feels really sustainable to me and like a really good team at this level that can kick on. And, I see no sign of it slowing down.
There's a double header coming in December against Ipswich. I think we play them twice in about 3 weeks, and definitely got my eye on that as kind of... I still do think they will finish in the top 2.
Yeah.
I also think we're going to finish in the top 2, though, now, after what I've seen. It's just been incredible. I think you mentioned a good point there, that a regression to the mean sometimes happens in the second round of games where teams have figured each other out. They know how to set up and stop a certain team playing. I think we're so unpredictable that it's difficult to see that. We were so direct against Stoke. We've had so many long passes from Bobby Thomas and Kitchen from the back, finding Sakamoto out wide. We can play through the lines, which I'm sure will be the case more when Rodoni comes back, because we haven't been playing with a number 10 really. Instead, Thomas Sante has been so far up the pitch, and we've been a little short in midfield. The way we're playing is so moldable to the opposition that we will come unstuck at times, and we will lose games this season. But I can't see us going on a significant bad run. And when you look at the home form, especially since Lampard came in, we've lost to Ipswich at home in the FA Cup, and we've lost to Leeds and Burnley at home, and that's it. And we're a year into his reign now. In a couple of weeks' time, I don't see us getting beaten at home at all this season, unless Ipswich come and do us over. I think being unbeaten at home this season is a really realistic goal that we can maintain. Obviously, we lost to Wrexham, and that was disappointing on the road to lose our unbeaten record as a whole. But I don't see many teams coming to us and beating us at the CBS, if any, with the whole atmosphere, the sellout crowds. It's just all so good at the moment. And when you base that to build a season upon, I think it ends in promotion. I do.
Yeah.
And that sounds too brazen for me to even mention those words out loud, given all the struggles we've been through and all the heartbreak. But I said it the other day, this is the year. It has to be the year.
So I think the one counter to that, Simon, and I'm very much, what's the word? I'm kind of clutching at straws a little bit, because I'm very much won over by a lot of what Coventry have produced this season and what you're saying. But I think it's probably the depth that's possibly the one question mark. And on the one side of that, there's the argument that you've got a tight-knit group of players, and sometimes that can mean that there's partnerships, there's relationships that are in place that maybe bigger squads wouldn't be able to find. And on the other side to that, you go, if you have an injury crisis, Coventry might struggle more than others who have got two players for every position. Is squad depth a legitimate concern when it comes to Coventry's top two credentials, or for now are you not so worried about it because you like the synergy and the connection of the team?
Definitely before the start of the season, I would have agreed with you. If you'd have said we'd have had, I don't know what we're on now, 6, 7, 8 games without Jack Rodoni, and we don't have another number 10, I'd have been really concerned that we'd have had a massive drop off in form. The way we've changed the style of play and the way we've gone about solving that issue has been really impressive. The defeat at Wrexham is where we were without 5 first-team players. So that was Rodoni,
especially in defence,
and then 3 of the back 4, Van Avak, Bobby Thomas, who's been so crucial this season, and De Silva at left-back. And I think that's where, obviously, we saw Kiefer Moore take advantage. But I don't see any team doing well without 5 starters out. I think that's just an unfortunate place we were in with suspensions and injuries. And I know Ipswich have far more squad depth than we do, and they can bring on better players off the bench. But outside of that, I still think they would struggle with 5 first 11 players missing. So definitely less of a concern now. I think when we replace someone as injury prone as Ben Sheaf, who's played, I don't know, what was it, 30 games on average, 25 games a season for us for the last 3 seasons, which just isn't enough for your captain and your midfield player, with Matt Grimes, who has missed 4 games, I think, in 4 years. And that feels like I'm cursing him, but he's a 90-minute man every single week, and so reliable, and one of the best 2 or 3 midfielders in the Championship. An absolute steal from Swansea, the way he's transformed the way we play. If he's missing, we would probably have an issue because he's that important. But that he's not missing that often, and that's a big reason why we spent the money on him. So yes, I was really concerned about squad depth before the season. I thought that's where we might come unstuck. I think we've dealt with the squad depth and the absentees pretty well so far already, and Rodoni coming back is a bigger boost, I think, than we could possibly imagine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the silences are often, we have this arrangement with Ollie where sometimes there's a silence that allows him to come in and
I think the other side of it, Gabby, is that it's just I'm jealous. Whenever when I used to talk like that, I used to go, oh, Vinny Souza, what a player. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. We'll cover his injuries. And
does Hamer want to come back in January, do you reckon?
Well, this was going to be the question, Simon, is that, we talked there about squad depth, but Coventry are in such an unbelievable position that January now, it's unrealistic to suggest that you won't be in or around the top two come January. Do you think there is going to be space for the club in terms of recruitment, in terms of looking at potential movement to address some of those issues around squad depth, to bring more players in, to make sure you've got that coverage? And obviously you joke there about Harmer, but look at where we are. I'm fairly confident there'd be a deal to be made if you've got the money.
It's interesting. This is the season we have to go for it. We are missing a number 10. I would hope that a number 10 could come in one way, shape, or form.
Is Guy Andrews meant to be any good?
He's a good player, but not for the level we're at the minute. He's had minutes. He could probably do with a loan, and he carries the ball wonderfully well, but we haven't seen enough of it, and we're not going to start him probably in the Championship this season. I wouldn't expect. We need a number 10 edition, like in the mould of Casey Palmer, not Casey Palmer himself, but that's the player off the bench we're missing, where we're struggling to break down a team. You throw him on for 20 minutes. Callum O'Hare as well, somebody like that. Absolutely the person we're missing. I don't want him. I mean, he's not coming back, but I'm just saying a player in that mould is.
He's absolutely not available.
He's your only good player this season, isn't he? Oh.
By far.
We definitely do need some January recruits. It's the balance, isn't it, for Frank? I think there will be money there to be spent. We were in profit this summer because we sold Louis Binks and Ben Sheaf for 10 million total, I think it was, which when you look at what we're at now, the fact we made profit in the summer and weren't in a negative is amazing. I think there will be a little bit of investment in the summer. In January. It will probably be looking more forward to the summer, though, depending on the position we're in. I think
really, I think
for it.
So I've seen it happen in League Two, where teams like at Warsaw, for instance, last season were put in a really confident position, and they didn't address the January correctly, and then they had a massive drop off. And I think that can be a problem, especially if you do lose a key player. Although I have some confidence with Coventry's point of view that won't happen. But I think I would definitely be inclined to avoid complacency when it comes to January. And I know that you've got some stadium improvements and all that kind of thing that you're putting some money towards. But I would really say, make sure that you can, or buying the stadium. Sorry, that's what you're trying to, isn't it?
I think it'll be a case of one, two, or three potentially coming in. I think Frank likes a small squad, and he made that quite clear in the summer. If you look at, I think we sent 3 or 4 people out on loan in the last 2 days of the window when we have a pretty small squad already. And he was just like, I want the people around the first team squad to play and to be able to come on and play, able to contribute. So I think there's a balance, isn't there? I mean, we don't want to be bringing in 4, 5, 6 and disrupt what we've got going on, because we've seen that before in League One, where we had, Adam Armstrong, Ryan Kent, James Maddison, and then we signed Marc-Antoine Fortuné and all
Joe Cole.
Hey, Joe Cole was good. Let's not have any Joe Cole slander. But yeah, that ended up, Tony Mowbray ended up.
His legs had gone by that point. So.
Yeah, we ended up with too many players, and it ruined our season, and we ended up finishing like 8th or 9th. So it's a very fine balance. I'd expect 2, potentially 3 to come in, but this is the time to go for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly is. I'm really enjoying the attacking dynamics with Coventry at the moment. Sakamoto, Thomas Asante, Mason Clark, and Hadji Wright. And again, I come back to that word synergy. They've got a real relationship between them that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Sakamoto in particular has really stepped up this season. I think he just loves having a fullback and a bit of a one-on-one battle. And when he's on his game, you know what you're going to get. And the crosses into the box from him have been really, really good this season as well. Mason Clark, obviously a massive goal. Stoke away has been really good. And Thomas Asante and Hadji Wright's dropped off a bit in the last couple of games, but he's overall had a really good season in terms of goals. I'm hoping once this international break is out the way and he's played for the USA again, hopefully had a good performance, he can really focus on the club football again for a bit in this stretch over kind of the winter months before the World Cup next summer as well. I think that might be slightly on his mind a little bit, but yeah, you're right. The front four's been excellent. Ellis Sims has actually contributed really nicely off the bench in a few games in the last 3 or 4. He's done really well. His attitude's changed. He's improved. And that's something that we didn't really see come in last season. You talk about Thomas Asante as well. I mean, we were potentially in conversations with Blackburn talking about a deal to move him on early in Frank's reign. But Frank Lampard's improved so many players in this squad. Jay De Silva, Thomas Asante. And I think that's where he deserves massive, massive credit, because this is the same squad as we had last season, apart from Grimes came in January and Rushworth was signed really in the summer for the starters. So that consistency has really helped. And yeah, it's all good. What else can I say?
We're coming back to a broader point, Ollie, in terms of the promotion candidates in the Championship. On the one hand,
I think we've got a long way to go, Gab, if we're going to catch up.
Yes, I think so. I think there's what was I going to say? There's a lot of there's four. On the one hand, it feels like a really open league, and yet if I look at teams that I could envisage getting the points required to finish in the top 2, I would say they're Coventry, Middlesbrough, Stoke and Ipswich. And I would probably agree with Simon that Coventry and Ipswich will be the 2. But I feel like we're looking at those 4 teams because I don't trust. I think the other team that the rest of the teams, I would either maybe not quite have the trust in them to find that consistency. And they're such underdogs, it's hard to put too much faith in them 15 games in.
Yeah, I completely agree, Gab. And I think, that feels like the 4 who will end up playing it out. I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't really see Stoke having it in them to last the duration. I don't think they're going to be a team that get 80, 85. I think they might get 75. And the question is, how low is the bar? But yeah, I think I'd be going Coventry Ipswich. The one to keep an eye on, obviously, is depending on the impact of the new manager at Southampton, because with the squad of players they've got available to them, there is every chance they could put together an absolute monster of a run to start themselves catching up. But I think they've left themselves way too much to do if they were going to do that. I think they'll be aiming to get into the playoffs and do it via that route again. But I mean this with no disrespect to the teams who are involved. They're having unbelievable seasons. They could prove us wrong. Hull have proved me wrong. I said they were going to finish bottom. So what do I know? You know what I mean? Write me off. But I very much see it as being a race probably between Coventry, Middlesbrough, Ipswich, with Ipswich and Coventry, the 2 who, I would very strongly suggest will be the 2 who finish first and second come the end of the season.
It's the question mark, isn't it, over Borough? What do they do with the new manager as we go back to? If they get that right, they're banging the conversation for the top 2. But there's that little question mark that suggests that we don't know what's going to happen. So I think that's
exactly. If Middlesbrough appoint Corbrand, for instance, then you'd have to consider them a contender. Whereas if they went for someone that you're not as sure about, then it might be more of a playoff conversation for them. Well, listen, gents, really enjoyed the chat this evening. Thanks so much for talking to us. Simon, thanks for joining us from the excellent That Cov Pod. Thanks, Ollie, as well from Sheffield United Way. You'll be glad we didn't talk about Sheffield United this time.
I'm always glad when we don't talk about Sheffield United.
The glutton for punishment will resume next week, I imagine. Thanks everyone for watching. This has been the EFL Debate Championship podcast, and we'll see you again next week.